didn't want to be around. I remember my loop thoughts just really taking over my brain. And I remember waking up one morning and I had like 30 seconds before my loop thoughts just started coming in and my anxiety started building in. And I was like, I need to do something because I don't want to live anymore. It was just too much for me at that time. And I knew that the rock bottom of my mental health kind of gave me a liberated sense of I'm going to die or I'm going to do what I want to do. I think my thing was I wanted to have purpose. Like I was like, God, this can't be it. Working at a job cannot be the only thing. Like living in this life can't be the only thing. I knew there was more than drinking and going out and partying and all of this. And I knew there was more to my life, but I just didn't know what. And so that was really the pain that I was in. For anyone that wants to connect to their intuition and their soul, I think meditation is going to be the first thing. I think a lot of people, when they first start to meditate, they'll hear the voices, they'll hear the thoughts come in all the time. And what I've found is there's this kind of clearing and cleaning that happens of your psyche and of your mental space in the first couple months, month, week, whatever, in meditating that you sort of have to get through to get to the truth and get to the peace and get to the quiet and then eventually listen to your soul. I never thought in my life I would love my body, ever. I spent my entire life hating my body, wanting to change myself. I didn't think it was possible. And so to actually have it be possible has been just the greatest gift of my
Oh,
life. And
it's so
I'm so
beautiful.
grateful to have the experience.
Welcome to Meditation Motel, where we slow down, unwind, and explore the mind. Here we dive into my guests' inner worlds, the challenges they face, and their unique journeys with mindfulness and maybe meditation. This is a space where we not only listen, but experience. Here we check in, not just to a place, but to our own breath, our own bodies, and our own awareness. And today, checking into Meditation Motel is Krista Williams, speaker, author, and co-founder of the globally renowned Almost 30 podcast. Alongside her best friend Lindsey, Krista launched the podcast during their Saturn Return, turning raw conversations into one of the most trusted platforms for modern spirituality. I had the pleasure of meeting Krista just a few weeks ago at the Almost 30 book tour stop in London, and over the years, Krista has been helping women build confidence, deepen their intuition through her work from podcasting to retreats and transformational programs. She really encourages women to trust themselves, ask bigger questions, and lead from within. I'm really, really excited to explore how Krista integrates mindfulness, energy work, and soulful practices into her own journey. So, Krista, before we begin, let's just take a moment here to settle in with a quick check-in meditation. So whenever you're ready, close your eyes. Let's start with a box breathing exercise where we inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold again for 4. Let's do 4 rounds. I will guide you through the first round and then join you. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Take a deep breath in. Let go. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. Oh, how do you feel?
Could stay there. Could stay there forever.
Me too.
Feels so good. Sometimes I do drop-ins with my clients, and sometimes I have to like catch myself. I'm like, you can't go too deep, sister. I'm like, someone's got to hold the pose.
When I guide, I have to say I really go sometimes even deeper than when I do my own meditation. It's so interesting to kind of share that space together.
It's so beautiful.
Before we dive deeper into the conversation, I'd love to start with something simple. As a meditation teacher, what I really appreciated about your London book tour stop was how you incorporated not just conversation, but also breathing exercises and prayer. It brought such a sacred energy to the space. And the question I ask all of my guests is, do you practice meditation?
Yeah, so I started meditating when I was, I think, 24. I was so depressed and anxious at the time. I um didn't want to be around. I remember my loop thoughts just really taking over my brain. And I remember waking up one morning and I had like 30 seconds before my loop thoughts just started coming in and my anxiety started building in. And I was like, I need to do something because I don't want to live anymore. It was just too much for me at that time. And so I went on this retreat that was in Patagonia. It was like off grid. It's this something called National Outdoor Leadership School. You earn like outdoor skills. It's very weird and random. I've done a lot of very weird things in my life, but on that retreat, there was this guy and he taught me how to meditate. And so I learned how to meditate and then I did TM and all of that. But
Oh,
I
that's
think it's the cornerstone of one of the most influential decisions of my life outside of stopping drinking is learning to meditate for sure. So it's a practice I do every single day. Sometimes I won't do it, but I definitely would say that 90% of the time I'm meditating every day.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Mhm.
I really started meditating for the same reasons. I think I was around the same age as you,
Mhm.
where everything was so overwhelming that meditating was the only thing I could do because it's something you can do for free and it's something you can do by yourself without having to wait for a therapist. So I think with this podcast also I'm always trying to kind of make meditation as relatable as possible because it can seem a bit off-putting at the beginning,
Yeah.
but really for me it saved my life, and it's so nice to hear you had the same experience. I was
Mhm.
wondering, when you're hosting retreats, what are some of the core tools or practices you share with the
Mhm.
women attending? Is it also meditation or is it more discussion based?
Mm. Yeah, so just for anyone listening, so I host retreats all over the world. I've been doing it for like 3, 4 years now. And I've been trained in a few different modalities of energy work, internal family systems, meditation, life coaching, et cetera. So I have a bunch of different things that I run through my own algorithm, somatic practitioner training, trauma informed, et cetera. So it's kind of like a mix, but I would say that we are dropping in with guided visualization meditation at least once a day. We might do inner child work during that time. We might visualize, the future self. It really depends on sort of the content for the event. Like, as an example, I did a retreat in Portugal last year called The Divine Mother, and it was about healing
Mm.
the mother wound. So, a lot
Wow.
of that work was parts work in meditation to find the inner child, connect with the inner mother, do a lot of healing. There is also time where it is no guidance, just meditation. So, it's like sitting with thoughts in silence, which I think is very, very important. We'll set time aside for that. But I like to mix a lot of things in, whether it's, a visualization or prayer, it kind of just flows with whatever I'm feeling. But, at the London event, like you mentioned, with every event that I do or speaking opportunity, like I always pray, like I always pray behind the scenes and I always pray publicly because I see each space and container as like newly created and formed energy that needs guidance and direction of where to go. And so when we kind of have that newly created vital energy of a new group, of a new space, of a new intention, of a new moment, bringing God in the room, and God's like what I work with, it's not religiously affiliated, but I just work with God. And so bringing God in the room to kind of form and set the space of something that's going to be light, something that's going to be positive, something that's going to be beautiful, just really helps set up the stage for the rest of the evening and really creates a purity and a sanctity that really allows people to go deep, that allows people to feel safe, and that really helps people to feel like we're all part of this room and this experience. I mean, you felt it, when we were there, like anything that I do, you can feel the container set through the prayer and that everyone's in the room and in the container and in the experience. And I've found that to be just such a joy in my life. I've now praying at weddings and, places all over the world. And it's one of the greatest things that I'm able to do is bring God into the places that I go.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Do you notice any different kinds of resistance sometimes or openness to these practices
Mhm.
depending on where people are in their journey
Mhm.
when you do the
Yeah,
retreat?
it's a really great question. It's such a great question. So I'll answer it and just say that for me and my God journey, I grew up Catholic in a small town in Ohio. And so growing up Catholic, my relationship to it meant I had a lot of religious trauma. I didn't see God as loving. I didn't see God as a guy. I didn't see God in the way that I do now. And I had to go through my own journey of reclamation of a God that is loving and benevolent and in partnership and creatorship and that wants good for me and that is non-judge, all these things. So I had to do my own healing work on that. I did it, 5 or 6 years ago and really reclaimed my relationship. So a lot of people still have that programming, still have that fear, still have that experience, and that's completely fine. It's, all for them. I do offer, if it's not God, it's creator, universe, source, whatever the name is, like God doesn't care about the name. But in my experience, I do try my best to bring it in a space of non judgment and
Mhm.
liberation and freedom. And I'm sure there are people that are like a little uncomfortable with it. But, what I can do is do what I know to be true for the spaces I create and the things that I, want and just allow that to be. So if you are in a space with me, you kind of know what it is. But I've never had anyone say anything to me that they were uncomfortable. But I have had people be like, I was a little unsure, but the way that you bring it in is made me feel good about it, which is just such a great feeling.
Yeah, I didn't have the feeling from what I've experienced in London that you put like your template on it. It
Yeah.
was kind of like you felt whatever came up for yourself.
Yeah.
It was very generic in a way that everyone can kind of feel what they want to feel, connect with what they want
Yeah.
to connect.
What's your experience in London? Like, do you feel like people, what's the perception? Are people, do they say God? Do they not? Are they afraid? Like, what's the perception?
So I think most of my connections are still back in Germany where I'm from,
Mhm.
but most people I relate to, they use the word universe.
Mhm.
I don't really have anyone. I think that's something that might come over from the States at some point. I
Mhm.
think there is a consciousness
Mhm.
coming, and I mean, through content creation and spirituality. I mean, LA is probably where you're based, is like the
Epicenter.
capital
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
wellness and everything, so I think it's probably gonna come at some point, but I don't think we're there yet.
Mhm.
I haven't used it myself, but
Mhm.
I'm open to it. There's a
Mhm.
lot of YouTubers I have been following for years. They've been YouTubers for years, and they have been kind of shifting from spiritual content into more Catholic content. And I have tapped into it, but I don't think I'm 100% there yet, but I'm very open to it.
I think that's very true. I've also noticed that as well, where a lot more people in the spiritual space are moving towards towards Christianity in a way, or towards Jesus, towards Christ. And the
Mhm.
Christians would say that this is like the coming of Jesus, that this is like what is written in scripture. This is like what's meant to happen, that Christ comes on the scene and then more people become interested. I think for me, I have a deep love and reverence of Christ and there's a part of my spiritual code that is based in Christianity in some ways where the Bible is one of the most impactful books in history of all time. The stories and the teachings and the testaments are incredibly impactful. A lot of spiritual teachings come from the Bible, but I wouldn't say it's all of what I believe and teach. It's
Mhm.
kind of a part of it, um, and a part of like the experience. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of happens over time as we kind of
Definitely.
move closer to a potential new way of being. And I think the last thing that I'll say is that what has been helpful for me is going to have one simple source, like the sustainer, God. And it's like before I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to angels. I'm going to talk to my guides. And I still talk to angels and
Mhm.
my guides. Like I love my team, but I would talk to a bunch of different things. I was doing a bunch of different rituals. I was like, had my crystals, had my tarot, going to the psychics, all this stuff. And nothing wrong with that. I've seen and done it all. Like, I've been in the space for over 10 years, but it's like I've found a purity and an ease and a calm and a peace just by being like, I'm going to pray to God. This is how I'm going to go straight to God rather than I'm going to God through tarot. I'm going to God through crystals. I'm going to God through
Mhm.
all these things. It's like, I'm just direct line now. And it's made life so much easier.
So I really finally want to get into the good stuff.
Mhm.
I rediscovered you and Lindsey at such a pivotal time, right
Mm,
at the beginning of my Saturn return. Think it must have been around a few months ago, 6 months ago. So
mhm,
your content and especially your new book, Almost 30,
mhm,
has been such a supportive guide through this transformative chapter.
mhm,
And I already spoke to Lindsey a few weeks ago on my podcast. And now that we've actually met in real
mhm,
life in London during your book tour, I'm really, really happy to kind of continue the conversation with you.
mhm,
So before I dive into all the questions that might help others or me, I really want to know how your Saturn return started. Can you
mhm,
take me back to when you first felt something was off in your 20s? Where were you living? What were
mhm,
you experiencing? What felt
mhm.
misaligned at that time?
Yeah. So hopefully, if you guys listened to the episode with Lindsay, she explains the Saturn return and all of that. It's basically just like a cosmic coming of age. It happens between 27 and 30 in a really pivotal, important time in your life. Around 26, your prefrontal cortex comes online. So you become conscious. So there's just deep change and transformation during this time. A lot of people are getting married, having kids, starting new jobs, careers. And it also feels really challenging and you feel lost. For me, I was living in Chicago, which is a place where everyone from my hometown sort of moves after college. They're like, okay, we live here, and then we all go here, we all get married, and then we start a life and we get a job and all of that. So I was on the path that everyone else said I should be on to make me happy. I was dating my college boyfriend, I was with my college friends, I was at the job, in consulting that was, you know, like really successful, and I was miserable. Like I said, I was so depressed and anxious. I couldn't get a hold of my mental health. I had struggled in my life with my mental health. It's been a conversation because my parents both struggled quite a bit with their mental health. So it wasn't something I was new to, but it was so bad that, I had to do something. And so at that point, I started to kind of come into a deeper spirituality and a deeper relationship to my soul, and I started to listen. And I knew that the rock bottom of my mental health kind of gave me a liberated sense of I'm just going to either I'm going to die or I'm going to do what I want to do. And so that meant quitting the job that I was in. And that meant leaving the relationship that I was in for 5 years. That meant leaving the friendships that I was in. And that meant living off grid in Patagonia at that leadership school for like a month. So I was off grid, canoeing, no contact with anyone, just figuring my life out, learning to
Wow.
meditate, kind of connecting in with myself with no plan of what I was going to do. And so in that time, I felt so lost. I felt so alone. I felt so wanting purpose. I think my thing was I wanted to have purpose. Like I was like, God, this can't be it. Working at a job cannot be the only thing. Like living in this life can't be the only thing. I knew there was more than drinking and going out and partying and all of this. And I knew there was more to my life, but I just didn't know what. And so that was really the pain that I was in. Um, and so after that point, I ended up meeting someone that ended up being my husband. I moved to New York. I got another job and I just continued my soul searching. So a lot of my Saturn return was deep, deep soul searching
Yeah.
and deep, deep following the pings and following my intuition. So whether that was following my intuition to go to a psychic and then that psychic tells me I'm going to meet the man that's going to be my husband and then moving and whatever, or going to Patagonia to learn to meditate, or stopping drinking, or whatever. I just really was like listening to the call of my soul because at that point, the meditation had really created an opportunity for me to connect with my soul because I had quelled my anxiety so much, which was such a benefit. And I think for anyone that wants to connect to their intuition and their soul, I think meditation is going to be the first thing. I think a lot of people, when they first start to meditate, they'll hear the voices, they'll hear the thoughts come in all the time. And what I've found is there's this kind of clearing and cleaning that happens of your psyche and of your mental space in the first couple months, month, week, whatever, in meditating that you sort of have to get through to get to the truth and get to the peace and get to the quiet and then eventually listen to your soul. So I was at very, very different rock bottoms. People thought I was insane. People thought I was crazy. People thought I was lost. People thought I was confused. But I think I was more on my path than I probably had ever been.
Yeah, it sounds like you did such a brave thing, though, even though you really felt lonely and you didn't know where to go. You did go to Patagonia and you started meditating and you just left everything. I think at some point you knew that, okay, it's all in now. Like, there's just no, I've been there before. Like, there's just this road and you have to follow it.
I was going to say it's so beautiful that you had that. And my hope and prayer is that everybody has that experience of the soul just being like, this is what we're doing, like I'm so grateful for that in my life. And it makes me emotional to think about it because it's like, even when I felt so lost and confused and all these things, my soul was just like, we're going this way. It's like, I don't care what your mind thinks. Like, this is what we have to do. And
Exactly
it's
that.
just, that's what makes life worth living is that experience of being guided by something bigger and greater than you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost a higher power. So when did you meet Lindsey then?
So I met Lindsey. So I was in Chicago, moved to New York for a little bit to be with my then ex-husband. And then when I was living in New York, I wanted to be a soul cycle instructor. So I thought that's what my soul wanted me to do was be a soul cycle instructor, which for anyone listening, it's kind of like a group fitness class cycling. But in the States, it's really big. It's popular. You can make good money doing it. And you're almost like a performer. And so I thought that's what I wanted to do. And Lindsey was a soul cycle instructor. So a friend connected us and she's like, hey, if you want to be an instructor, I know this amazing instructor. Her name's Lindsey Simsick. She lives in California. She'd be a good contact for your process of doing it. And so we connected on FaceTime and I asked her about the process. And, she was sitting in her apartment at that time. We had this call and it was like a beautiful call. It was really good. And then I went to her class to meet her. And I think from that point, we were just inseparable. It was one of
Mhm.
those really soulful connections that I haven't had many times in my life. I remember being in my living room of my one bedroom apartment in Venice. And it was after she and I had met. And she dropped me off from a workout. And I was just walking in my apartment. And I just heard my soul say, she's the missing puzzle piece. Like, she's the
Oh,
missing
that makes
puzzle
me so
piece.
emotional. That's beautiful.
And it was just
Oh.
like, yeah, and it just felt like a lock in, like
Mhm.
I think a lot of times in dating conversations and romantic relationships, people will talk about chemistry and the spark, or they'll talk about
Mhm.
kind of the feeling of safety and of home. And ever since I've known her, it's felt like just this like, okay, our souls met. We're gonna do what we came here to do. And she's been so important in my path. And I think we both met at a time where we both felt so lost and we both felt confused about feeling like we should have more answers in life, feeling like we should be in a different position than we were. Like, she didn't have a relationship. I didn't have a purpose. She was wanting to figure out career. We were both struggling. We both felt at rock bottoms and we were in our 20s and we were like, we should be married. We should have kids.
Mm.
We should be,
Should,
you
should,
know,
should. That's the
the
part
shoulds.
I'm
Yeah, there were
yeah.
so many. And so the podcast was just our desire to have conversations together about the feeling of being lost and the feeling of and desire of wanting more for our life.
Mm. I'm not sure if you remember, but in London, I asked a question around the topic of friendships. So my Saturn return is happening, I believe in my 12th house, which relates to community. And that's been so clearly my core theme. I'm in a very happy marriage and I'm finally starting to pursue my creative passions, but I feel incredibly disconnected from my sense of local community here in London, at least. My closest friends are back in Germany or in France. So while I love London, I just don't feel rooted here when it comes to deep connections. So, do you have any advice for someone going through something similar? Because you said you made that great connection with Lindsey, but also left some friendships before. I guess my problem is that it's not really about making connections. That's always been quite easy for me.
Mhm,
But it's more about making the right connections that
mhm.
feel like click. just
Mhm.
what you described.
Mhm. Do you have you had any kinda click connections in your life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's, like, I would say a handful of friends back in Germany. I also clicked recently with someone who lives in France.
Mhm.
So definitely really, really deep connections, and we really understand each other on a spiritual level, and it's really about deep talks. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's not really about, I think my main question is London just very,
Mhm.
is everyone a bit self-absorbed here because it's
Mhm.
also a city of business?
Yeah.
Or is it just maybe my Saturn return just making me trying to focus on my business that I'm trying
Mhm.
to build and my marriage? So it's
Mhm.
just a whole bunch of questions, and it's really
Mhm.
my core theme, and I can't figure out something's in misalignment.
Mhm. So desiring and last question. So it's you desire more connection and community in London?
In London, yeah. All of
Yeah.
my friendships are long distance, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think, for me on my path, I've been in LA for 7 years now, I think.
Mhm.
Maybe longer. And I think it took probably 2 to 3 before I found community, and it's kind of built from there, and it's kind of expanded and then contracted, expanded and then contracted. I think what I've
Mhm.
really come to know about friendships and relationships is that it's very rarely stagnant for me. It very rarely is the same people at the same time. I
Mhm.
even think about I was married before, I'm not married anymore, but I didn't have a bridal party, but I had a bachelorette, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of those women, I love them. We're still in touch, but they're not really my closest friends. They're not people that I
Mhm.
would call. And so the more we can be in acceptance and liberation around the fact that our friendships will change, the community that we connect with will change. It's not going to stay stagnant. You're going to be close with someone for a year and then maybe you'll drift
Mm.
and maybe you'll come back. Like it's a living organism, our life.
Yeah.
And that's sort of
I
given
like
me this
that.
sense of freedom and liberation where I felt like previously I had to have 4 best friends that stayed deeply close in a deep way that talked very regularly, da 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 da. And I change all the time. I'm changing every day. I change what I'm interested in. I change, and so it's going to be reflected in my relationship.
Ah,
So
that's so true.
liberating yourself for that. I think a second thing is that I think a lot of times I want to talk about your question, but I also want to say too that um, there's always opportunity for us to start the flow of connection and community with everybody in life, not just like people we want to pursue.
Mm.
And I think about
Mm.
this a lot with dating. I was in a season of dating for a while, and I remember at the beginning, I used to go out and I would only want to talk to and flirt with someone that was so hot that I was interested in, etc. So I'd go out and I'd be like, only this one person of every single person that I've seen today, I want to talk to. And that type
Mm.
of energy isn't open, isn't creative, isn't explorative. And I think the same can be said with friends is
Come on.
opening ourselves up to maybe someone that doesn't seem on paper like someone we'd be friends with. Or maybe we
Mm.
meet someone out and we're normally not like attracted to someone that maybe doesn't have the same interests or isn't in the same field, but just kind of keeping that open energy of possibility, of creativity, of like movement is a really positive thing. So being really nice to your
Mhm.
Uber driver, to your barista, like talking for a while with the people at the gym, like just getting in this really positive, beautiful flow of connection and communion and community to allow the people to naturally come into your life that you want to keep. So you could start a conversation with someone, you go, oh, this is someone I want to pursue more of, etc. But I think sometimes we can just be in our flow. And I can imagine in London, people are on the tube at work, walking home, and their heads down, they're on their phone, they're doing the thing. And it's gonna be less likely that you meet someone that you become friends with if you're kind of in that mentality. I'm not saying you are, but I think when we can stay open for life and creative with life and allow things to sort of move and ebb and flow, it can be a beautiful thing. And then lastly, I would get curious about like, what are the beliefs that I have around women and I have
Yeah.
around friendships? Women will betray me. Women are competitive with me. Women will bully me. Women can't be trusted. Like there always are beliefs that are creating our reality. And sometimes when we're honest about them, we can be able to really see clearly the dots connecting of why we're being reflected back something that we don't want.
Yeah.
I love, honor, and accept my journey and my path and the part of me that's scared of being
Mm.
friends with women.
I like
And
that.
I'm willing to see what it's like to connect with women, and I'm gonna be with the fear all along the process, but I'm willing and open to have a new experience. Like, I'm
Oh, I like
willing to
that.
have a new experience. I'm gonna be clocking, I'm a different woman, but I'd love to have a new experience where I can be in safety, in security with women in a new way that feels good.
I like that a lot. Yeah, being acceptant. And then also, I think we're in this era now where which is great, we're like, oh, we have to set this boundary and that boundary. And I've really been, because I said yes to everything when I was young. Now I'm like, no, 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 this is my boundary, this is my boundary. But we have to kind of find the balance, because if you're just someone who sets boundaries all the time, you can't really connect.
Totally, yeah. Are the boundaries just walls? I remember there was this situation with someone, um, that I knew very deeply, and they put this boundary up, and I was like, that's just a wall. Like, you're just avoiding the
Mm,
intimacy of conversation, the intimacy of connection, the intimacy of truth. And it got
true.
me curious about any boundaries that I've set or desire for boundaries. And I
Mm,
think what I've learned in life is that the way that I live and the embodied self, and when I'm in my power, I actually don't need to set boundaries because people know how to operate in my presence and how to operate with me because I'm living in an experience of someone that you would be respectful to, kind to, not want too much from. Like, your energy can actually be the only boundary that you need. Like, it can happen
so
like
true.
creatively in the moment. And so I love boundaries, but I think there's levels to the boundaries that, people kind of miss the nuance of.
Yeah, because it's also kind of like you're not present, just what you
Hmm.
said, you're really present. I guess when you set boundaries, you think about something in the past or in the future, so you're really kind of disconnected from the moment. I really like that.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm. I really want to shift gears towards femininity. You often
Mhm.
speak about your journey of reconnecting with your really feminine energy, and how for a long time you were kind of operating heavily from your masculine in friendships, you said, business and relationships. So I was wondering, why do you think that was? And
Mhm.
how have you healed? Was it maybe also your Saturn return that kind of made you heal, kind of
Mhm.
shifting into a more feminine space?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'd say the number one question that women ask me and that I work on right now with them is women that desire to be more in their feminine essence and their femininity and that experience of being more feminine rather than the overfunctioning of the masculine, the overcompensating, burning out, outside of the body, in the strategy, in the mind, away from their intuition, away from the embodiment, away from their mystic side, away from their spiritual side. And my journey was very much in my masculine for my career in the corporate world and then in the relationship that I was in for a long time. So I was in a 10-year relationship and he was very feminine. He was very presenting
Mm.
masculine in the way that he was. He was an athlete, but in his essence was very feminine. But what I also realized is that when women are not in a safe space, whether that's at work or in relationship, in response, they put up a masculine shield. So the
Mm.
masculine shield is like, I'm at work and I'm on my period and I want to cry and I want to rest and I'm cramping. What do I have to do to survive in this masculine world? I'm going to put up a masculine shield. I'm going to disconnect from my body. I'm going to disconnect from my emotions. I'm going to disconnect from my feelings because I have to get through the day at this job. In romantic relationships, what that can look like is this man is in a safe space. This man can't hold the frame. This man is not someone that feels emotionally safe or whatever the things are. And so, again, we'll put up the masculine shield instead of being in our juiciness and our heart and our emotions and, the expression. We will start to be in the mind and be like, okay, well, we have to do this and I have to control and I have to strategize and all these things. So I was in my masculine shield quite a bit. And we had a friend come on the podcast with me and Lindsey. And he said to me, He's like, Krista, you have 2 wives. He's like, Lindsey, and then your husband, and you're the man. And I'm like, so true. And I
Wow. Oh,
was.
yeah, you were like, "Oh, yeah," so you already knew. Okay.
It hit me. It kind of hit me sideways, but then I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, I think that is true.
Hmm.
Because I was running the household, I was breadwinner, and I was organizing everything, planning everything, leading everything, fully in that. And then in almost 32, I was fully leading, strategizing, holding the frame and container of the business. And, honestly, it didn't bother me at that time to be in my masculine. But what bothered me is the way that I felt in my body and how stressed out I was, and how overworked I was, and how burnt out I was, and how much I was in my strategy, planning, execution mode, and how disconnected I was from my creativity and my intuition and my mystical side. I didn't have access to that really much at all. And so my journey to reclaiming and being in my feminine really started after my divorce. I didn't have the
Mm.
deep intention of going into a feminine journey of reclaiming that, but when I left that relationship, I was able to drop my masculine shield and really soften into the truth of who I was and come out of the patterns of hiding, of pretending, of contorting, of control,
Mm.
of all of these things. And what that meant for me was um, transforming my body to a more feminine body, to a softer body. What that meant for me was transitioning my workouts to be more feminine, meant more walking, it meant more connection and community with women. It meant more feeling, it meant more emotion, it meant more tears, it meant more imperfection, it meant more intuition, it meant more sleep and rest and all of these things. And now that I'm in just such a beautiful embodied feminine and also embodied masculine in a lot of ways, it's been the greatest gift. And what it's given me, just as a last point, is the ability to magnetize not only men and partners and flirtation and dates and pleasure and joy and fun, but also this experience of being in the fullness of who I was and who I am. Because before, when we're living in our masculine, it's really just cutting ourselves off from half of our experience. And my goal with my teaching of the feminine is really to remember our wholeness, to remember who we naturally are, to remember that we're both of
Mm.
these experiences. And I think for a lot of women, it's calling forth the feminine so that we can balance them out.
So you would say that it sounds like your femininity and your body acceptance was kind of like it was a whole journey and altogether, right?
For a lot of women, a lot of women hate their bodies. A lot of women want to change their bodies and change who they are. And when we're in that experience of judging the body, of shaming the body, of criticizing the body, we're in the mind. Our
Yeah.
mind has a perception of what we think our body should look like, the size, the weight, the measurements, all of these things. And we're also in this hypercritical, patronizing patriarchy of what we should look like based on things that are outside of ourselves. And so when I was in my masculine, not only was I holding more weight because I was stressed, overworked, burnt out,
Mm.
and I was carrying the world on my shoulders, so I had bigger shoulders. And my body was responding. So all the subconscious
Wow.
beliefs of I can't trust life, I can't feel, I have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. It's not safe to be in my body. It's not safe to be soft. Were impacting how my body was existing in the world. And so 100%, the more that I've been able to be in my feminine, the more beautiful I've felt, the more radiant I felt, the more beautiful my body has been, the more loving I've been to my body. Because the most feminine thing is love. Like, women are loving feminine beings, and the true divine feminine isn't hypercritical, isn't judging, isn't shaming. It's full acceptance and love unconditionally. So I wanted
Mm.
to bring that experience to myself and my body. And, you know, I'll say this just to wrap. It's like I never thought in my life I would love my body ever. I spent
Wow.
my entire life hating my body, wanting to change myself. I didn't think it was possible. And so to actually have it be possible has been just the greatest gift of
Oh,
my life. And
it's so
I'm so
beautiful.
grateful to have the experience.
Oh, wow. I
Mhm.
think as women, we're constantly comparing ourselves, right? So, not just physically, like you said, but also in terms of success, creativity, even energy. And it said that comparison once was a helpful evolutionary tool, but now it leads us to anxiety, shame, and disconnection. So I was really wondering, now that you're in this really good space, but you are living in LA and being present on social media, how do you kind of avoid falling into the comparison trap?
So I'll say three things. I think the first thing practically is that I have everybody on that I follow on Instagram muted. So every single account is muted on stories and posts. So when I open up my page, I don't see anything. I don't see anyone's stories. I don't see anyone's posts. I don't
Oh my
scroll.
gosh, I love
I
that.
don't scroll. It takes a little
I
bit. It
need
took a
to
little
do
bit
this.
for me to do that, probably like a month, but I have every single person muted. If I desire, I will
Amazing.
go to my friend's page once a month and just send them love, connect with them. If I'm feeling intuitively called to looking at someone's stuff, I'll do that. It's 100% changed me. I 100% suggest it. It's
I
been so
love that
powerful.
so
So that's a
much. I'm
practical way
definitely
to
gonna
support
do it.
yourself. Yeah,
Amazing.
it's really helpful. I would say, secondly, you only compare on things that you care about. And
Hmm.
so for me, I don't compare much on people's looks that much. Not that I care about my looks, but what I care about is success. And so I noticed myself really comparing people's success. They have more followers, they have more money, they have this opportunity, they have that. And so I just had to really be honest with myself about my true desire to be successful and my true
Mm.
desire to make something from my life. If I was to look at my comparison in the kindest eyes possible, what am I saying? I want that. I
Mhm.
want to be successful. I want to be seen. I want to be doing all these things. And so I've just kind of recognized that texture in me to really want to be
Mm.
successful. And I just kind of know it. And so I'll kind of watch it. Oh, I'm doing that thing. I want to be successful. I'm noticing myself compare.
Mhm.
And then I think a last thing is when you get so invested and interested in your purpose and your service and why you're here,
Yeah.
you just kind of stop looking at what everyone else is doing.
Yeah,
I
so
coach
true.
women and I work with women all over the world. And so many of them at the beginning of their journey are doing so much comparison. And it really is normal. But it's also like, I know that I'm here to serve. I know that God has me here for a purpose and a reason. And I need to do what I have to do for that. And that means my to do list. That means what is next. That means focusing on this world and universe that I've created. So becoming so obsessed with your life and your service and your own experience and what you came here to do also really supports that because when I compare, it's because I'm going outside of myself. It's because I doubt. It's because I'm insecure.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean that I never do. It doesn't mean I never don't compare because I do. But the most important thing, just of the three that I said, is probably the bounce back rate. And so if I find myself in a loop, I'm like, oh my God, I'm comparing, da 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 da. All I'll do is be like, oh my God, shoot, got to bounce back. Like, how many, like, take 5 minutes. Okay, cool. We're back. We're okay. Like all is well. Like, maybe it's a day that it takes me, maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's an hour, but it's just trying to get back to your baseline as quickly as possible to really like just remind yourself of who you are.
That's basically what meditation is, right? You're in a
Yes.
thought and like, "Oh, okay, I have to like go back to my mantra or whatever it is or my visualization." And I think you can bounce back easier if your brain is already kind of rewired in that sense.
Yeah,
So that really
100%.
reminded me of meditation. So, before we wrap up, I really want to quickly talk about, if you have time, relationships.
Mhm.
So, you've gone, like you said, through a long term relationship, divorce, and then kind of a deep personal growth that kind of comes with all of it. I was wondering, what are some of your biggest realizations you've had about relationships and
Mhm.
love in the past few years?
So relationships, what I've learned about relationships. Oh my gosh. I think the way that I approach relationships is so much lighter and so much more soulful and so much more less attached to an outcome or to the label. For me, I was married and I've been in deep long term relationships. A lot of them I thought we were going to get married and be together forever. And now that I've really seen them more from the soul level, I look now at it wasn't about us thinking we were going to get married or getting married. It was about this person teaching me this thing. It was about me growing
Mm,
in this way. It was about, him helping me to do this or me helping him to do that. And so I see them so much more from like a soulful level of
mm,
evolution and growth of like This helped me to become more of who I am. This brought me through this journey and this process and this evolution. And now I just approach relationships with so much more ease and love and curiosity than going for the outcome of the attachment. So often
Mm.
people go into dating or relationships and they're like, is this my husband? Am I going to get married to him? And I did that for a while too. I was like, oh my God, is
Mm.
this my husband? Are we going to get married? Are we going to, live on the lake? Are we going to do all these things? And it's like, now that I've lived enough life, I'm like, you never know what's going to go on with your life. You can think you have a plan. Like, we can talk about all that stuff and like live in the fantasy, but you never know. And so I just am like, I don't know. Abraham Hicks, I saw Abraham Hicks live, and Abraham Hicks said about relationships, she's like, the way we should approach it is by saying, I like you very much. Let's see how this goes. I
Oh,
like you very
that's
much. Let's see
nice.
how this goes.
Oh.
So it's just like reminding ourselves, like, today's great. I love you very much. Let's see how this goes. Like, how can we build a future, but also hold to things very lightly?
I love that. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Before we wrap up, at the
Uh-huh.
end of every episode, I like to just take a super quick final moment to turn inward
Mm.
with a quick breathing exercise where we just do maybe like 3 rounds where we breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and then breathe out for 8, just to release any lingering tension. So whenever you're ready, close your eyes one more time. And I guide you through the first round. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more rounds. Let your breath return to its natural rhythm. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. With that, we check out of the Meditation Motel for now, but the doors are always open for our next conversation. Thank you so much. It was amazing,
Thank
Krista.
you, baby. I appreciate you so much. It was so good to
Oh,
see you. I had so much fun
oh.
talking. I feel so at peace, and I'm grateful I can take this through the rest of my day.